In our presentation, we chose the tennis forearm swing, and we chose to divide it into 4 phases: the preparation, shifting, delivery and contact, and the completion phase. The preparation phase is that initial step back. The shifting phase is when the glenohumeral joint initiates circumduction. The delivery and contact is when the ball contacts with the racket. And then completion is when the racket comes all the way up to the opposite shoulder.
I'll be going over phase 1 of the tennis forehand swing. The player initiates Newton's laws and principles to prepare for the backhand stroke in this initial phase. The law of inertia describes when the player and the racket remain stationary until external force is being prompted by the movement. The angular motion involves the player rotating the racket and adjusting torque while maintaining balance. The law of acceleration, as the player's body accelerates from generating momentum from the legs and torso, the angular motion accelerates the body by using the arm translating to the racket to generate enough swing power. Lastly, the law of reaction. As the player's racket moves backwards, it creates a equal force for stability. The backward motion of the racket creates a reactive movement by counterbalancing the body's momentum and preparing for the forehand stroke. So by using Newton's laws and principles, the player can achieve biomechanical position by leveraging different forces to prepare for an efficient swing. Phase 1 of the upper body movements. So we have the glenohumeral joint, referred to as the shoulder joint. It performs flexion, abduction, and external rotation. The primary muscles for this will be the deltoid, the supraspinatus, and the pectoralis major. The origin point is the humeral head, and its insertion point is the glenoid fossa. The planes that are involved is the sagittal, the frontal, and the transverse plane. Next, we have the humeral ulnar and the humeral radial. Its action is to perform flexion or slight extension. The primary muscles are the biceps brachii, the brachialis, the radialis, and the triceps brachii. The origin point is the humeral trochanter and the humeral capitulum. Its insertion point is the trochlear notch and the radius foveae. And the plane that it's on is the sagittal plane. Next, we have the radial ulnar, and it performs pronation and supination. Its primary muscles is the pronator teres, the pronator quadratus, and the biceps brachii. Its origin point is the medial epicondyle of the humerus, and its insertion point is the lateral surface of the radius. And it performs on the transverse plane. And lastly, we have the radial carpal. It performs slight extension or flexion. Its primary muscles are the flexor and extensor carpi radialis. Its origin point is the distal end of the radius, and the insertion point is the carpal bones. The planes that it's on are the sagittal and frontal plane, and they all act as a third-class nervous system. For phase 1 of the lower body movements, we have the tibiofemoral. It performs flexion, and the primary muscles for this is the biceps femoris, the semitendinosus, the semimembranous, and the gastrocnemius. So the origin point for this will be the ischial tuberosity, and the insertion point will be the proximal tibia, calcaneus, and is via the Achilles tendon. planet axis will be the sagittal plane, and it is a third class lever. Next will be the talus curl. Its action is the dorsiflexion, and its primary muscles are the tibius anterior, the extensor digitorum longus, and the extensor hallucis longus. The origin point for this is the lateral tibia condyle, and the insertion point would be the Achilles. And it's on the sagittal plane, and is a second class lever. Lastly, we have the talocranial joint. Its action is eversion, and the primary muscles for this is the peroneus brevis and the peroneus longus. The origin point for this would be the lateral fibula and the lower fibula, and the insertion point is the base of the first metatarsal and the medial cuneiform. And it is on the frontal plane, and it also is a second class lever. Lastly, the differences between men and women's swing is the swing mechanics, grip style, kinetic chain usage, upper body strength and power, and follow through of the swing.
Moving on to phase 2, we're going to be talking about shifting. This is going to be shifting because you'll be shifting most of your weight in the back of your leg. There's 3 new laws involved in this step. First, you have law of reaction. This is going to happen when you have your ground reaction force. This is going to happen when you step back and your foot is going to press down on the ground. The ground is going to push back up, creating an opposite and equal force. The angular perspective of this is that your hips are going to rotate externally back, and this is going to allow a rotational torque, allowing you to generate force. Law of acceleration is next. When you circumduct your hips, the faster you circumduct your hips, the greater the force and acceleration you create in your arms and your swing. This is going to allow you to have a lot of stored potential energy. Moving on to your angular, you have both rotation, you have upper extremity and lower extremity torque. For the upper extremity torque, it's going to be in your forearm and your wrist. This is going to take place when you're rotating your racket. Then for lower extremities, you're going to be rotating your hips, your legs, and your abdominals. This is going to help you rotate and allow you to put all your pressure in your back leg. Then you have law of inertia, where you're going to shift your body to the back, and you have to overcome your weights, your body weight's inertia. This is going to allow you to continue to go backwards. Then you have your angular, where you have to rotate your hips backward, but you have to overcome the inertia that's in your trunk first. For your upper extremities, you're going to have your glenohumeral joint, starting with your external and lateral rotation. This is going to take place on your transverse plane and your polar axis. This is going to be considered a third class lever, and you're going to have your primary muscles, which are going to help you facilitate this action, which is going to be your interspinatus, your teres minor, and your posterior deltoids. The origin of this is going to be your humerus, and your insertion is going to be your glenoid fossa. Moving on, we have our humeral ulnar and humeral radial joint. These 2 joints come together to form your elbow complex. In this stage, you're going to be performing flexion. This is going to be taking place on the sagittal plane, doing the flexion axis. It's also going to be considered a third class lever. The origin of the humeral ulnar is going to be the trochlea of the humerus. The insertion of the humeral ulnar is going to be the trochlear notch of the ulna. The origin of the humeral radialis is going to be the humerus of the capitulum of the humerus, and the insertion is going to be the radial fovea. And the primary muscles that are going to be involved in this is going to be your brachii, your brachialis, your brachoradialis, and your peroneal teres. Next, we have your acromioclavicular. This is going to perform a downward and external rotation. It's going to take place in your transverse plane and your polar axis. This is also a third class lever, and the primary muscles to help you do these actions is going to be your deltoid and trapezius. And then lastly, you have your origins, which is going to be your acromial process, and your clavicle, which is going to connect to them. Next, you have your radiocarpal, which is going to be your concentric extension as you're holding the racket. To help you complete these moves, your muscles need to use your extensor, carpi, radialis, longus, brevis, magnus. Then you're going to have your origin, which is going to be the head of your radius, and it's going to be the insertion is going to be your carpal bones, which is going to be in your wrist. The plane that this is going to be on is sagittal, and it's going to be on the extension axis, and it's also a third class lever. Moving on to your lower body, we're going to start off with the coxofemoral joint. Both the coxofemoral and the non-preferred and preferred do the same thing. The only difference is that one of them is going to be doing medial rotation and the other one's going to be doing lateral rotation. So for the actions, they're going to be doing, for the non-preferred, the action is going to be hip extension, abduction, and external rotation. The primary muscles that are going to help you do this is going to be semimembranosus, semitendinosus, biceps femoris, gluteus maximus, and your adductor magnus. The origin of this is going to be your femur, and the insertion is going to be acetabulum. This is going to be a third-class lever because it operates on 3 fields: the sagittal plane, which is extension, frontal plane, which is abduction, and transverse plane, which is polar. Moving on, we have our patellofemoral. This is going to help you do knee flexion when you're bending backwards. Or bending backwards. And so the primary muscles that are going to help you here are going to be your rectus femoris, your vastus lateralis, vastus medialis, and vastus intermedius. The origin of this is going to be your ACE ischiotuberosity, your insertion is going to be your tibial tuberosity, and your lateral tibial condyle. This is also going to act as a second-class lever, and it's going to be on the sagittal plane and doing extension. Next, you have your talocrul, which is going to take place on your sagittal plane doing flexion axis. Your main muscle here is going to be your gastrocnemius, but your origin is going to be your condyle of your femur, and it's going to be on the insertion of your Achilles. And this is it for phase 2.
Moving into phase 3, the delivery and contact. When considering the law of inertia, the ball coming at the racket is at a lower inertia, and therefore when the racket hits it, it's able to bounce back and go in the opposite direction. Although the radius of gyration is long, he will probably he'll have more of a struggle to increase the inertia because his hand is so distally held on the racket handle. Moving to law of acceleration. The acceleration projection of the ball has to do with the circumduction of the glenohumeral joint, and with the help of the movement of fast hips, the torque increases in the racket, and which accelerates the angular acceleration, which allows the ball to get over the net. And then moving to the law of reaction, when the ball is coming at the racket, there is inertia, and then once it hits, it stops because the racket is coming at it with the same opposing force. And then the radiocarpal joint will feel this torque, and it just has to remain stable to keep going until completion. And then moving on to the upper body movements, we start with the glenohumeral. This is showing horizontal adduction with the help of the primary muscle, the pectoralis major. The origin is the humeral head, and the insertion is the glenoid fossa. This is on the transverse plane and is a third-class lever. Moving to the humeral ulnar and humeral radial, it's performing flexion with the help of the biceps brachii, long and short head, the brachialis, the brachioradialis, and the pronator teres. The origin and insertion of the humeral ulnar joint is the humeral trochlea and the trochlear notch. And the origin and insertion of the humeral radial is the humeral capitulum, and then the radial fovea. This is on the sagittal plane as a third-class lever. And then finally going down to the radiocarpal joint, it is undergoing dorsiflexion, and the primary muscle is the extensor carpi radialis brevis. The origin is the distal end of the radius, and the carpal bones is the insertion. This is on the sagittal plane as a third class lever. And then going to the lower body, starting at the coxfemoral joint, it's undergoing flexion and adduction. The iliopsoas muscle is the primary muscle. This includes the psoas major and iliacus. The origin is the femur and the insertion is the acetabulum. This happens on both the frontal and sagittal planes. This is a third class lever. Moving to the patellofemoral joint, this is undergoing extension, and with the help of the vastus medialis guiding the quad group, it's able to do so. The origin is the anterior inferior iliac spine as well as the ischial tuberosity, and the insertion is the tibial tuberosity and the lateral tibial condyle. This is on the sagittal plane and is a third class lever. And then moving all the way down to the talocrural joint, it is undergoing plantar flexion with the help from the primary muscles, the soleus, gastrocnemius, and the plantaris. The origin is in the condyles of the femur, as well as, and then it goes and inserts into the Achilles. It is on the sagittal plane and is a third class lever.
I will be presenting phase 4 of the completion phase of a forehand tennis swing. We have the law of inertia, law of acceleration, and law of reaction. First, the law of inertia is during the completion phase that is presenting no external forces that changes the direction of a racket. Therefore, the racket isn't going in any direction, it stays the same, and the force overpowers the resistance of the racket. Law of acceleration is when the ball has already been struck and the racket continues its movement with the follow through. This deceleration process is critical for preventing less injuries from occurring and controlling the follow through. Lastly, law of reaction during the ending phase, the completion phase, is when you have the law of reaction during the completion phase is to help maintain balance as the swing is finishing and help support the body. Moving on to the upper extremities, we have the glenohumeral joint, which is located within the shoulder, and it is a ball and socket joint. The action is the adduction and internal rotation, with the primary muscles being the anterior deltoid, the subscapularis, the serratus anterior, and the pectoralis major. The action is the humerus, the origin is the humerus, and the insertion is the glenoid fossa. This will be a third class lever with a transverse plane. Moving on, we have the humeral ulnar and humeral radial joint. It is performing flexion, and its primary muscles are the bicep brachii, long and short, brachialis, brachioradialis, and pronator teres. The origin is the humeral trochlea, humeral capitulum, and the insertion is the trochlear notch and radiofobia. This is in the sagittal plane with a third class lever. Next, we have the glenohumeral joint. This is the non-preferred one, and it is performing adduction with external rotation, and the primary muscles is the posterior deltoid, infraspinatus, and the teres minor. This is a third class lever with a transverse plane, and the origin is the humerus and glenoid fossa. Next, we have the lower extremities. We have the coxofemoral, which is in the hip joint. It is performing extension with the primary muscles being the gluteus maximus, semitendinosus, semibraniosus, adductor magnus, and biceps femoris. This origin is in the femur with the insertion being in the acetabulum, and it is in the sagittal plane with a third class lever. The patellofemoral joint is located in the front of the knee, and it is in a flexion, and the primary muscles is a vastus medialis, lateralis, intermedius, and the rectus femoris. The origin is the ischial tuberosity, with the insertion being the tibial tuberosity with the lateral tibial condyle. It is in a sagittal plane medial-lateral axis with a third-class lever. Lastly, we have the talocrural joint, which is located in dorsiflexion, and the primary muscles is the tibial anterior, with the origin being the soleus and the insertion being the Achilles. This is a sagittal plane with a medial lateral axis and a third-class lever.
Okay. So in tennis, there's a lot of pivoting and swinging, so of course there's going to be a lot of common injuries happening. So the first ones we're going to go over are the common lower body injuries, starting off with the Achilles tendon injuries, stress fractures, ankle sprains, plantar fasciitis, plantar tendonitis, as well as tennis toe and calf tears. Starting off with jumper's knee, also known as plantar tendonitis, happens when you overuse that tendon a lot, and the way you can prevent that is by strengthening the quadricep muscles around it and as well as the glute muscles. And you can also wear a patellar brace to relieve some of the pressure. And then we're going to move on to the common upper body injuries, which are the rotator cuffs, labral tears, wrist sprains and wrist fractures, elbow bursitis, lateral and medial epicondylitis, and the extensor carpi ulnaris tendinopathy. The two common ones is the rotator cuff, which can tear over time because of swinging the tennis racket a lot, and the way to prevent that from happening is by strengthening the scapular muscles and the shoulder muscles as well. And the second most common injury would be the tennis elbow, which also is caused by swinging the racket. And the way you can prevent that as well is strengthening the wrist muscles and the elbow muscles around, and you can also wear a wrist brace to help.
Now going into the radius of gyration, the equation is I equals mk squared, m being the weight of the tennis racket, and then k being where the hand is located. So when the radius of gyration is big, meaning the hand is pretty distal on the handle, it is far away from the center of mass of the tennis racket, and therefore when it's all the way out there, you don't have as much control on the racket, and therefore the projection of a ball is not accurate, and it's not as expected. And then having a shorter radius of gyration means that your hand is closer to the center of mass, which gives you a lot more control, and your elbow can flex a little bit, less movement in the hips, and therefore your projection can be a lot more accurate, and the ball will go to where you want it to go.
And we have the moment of arm. So before you swing, you're going to prepare yourself. So your racket is going to be away from your shoulder, creating a distance. This is going to increase your moment of arm. It's going to allow you to have stored potential energy. Now, as you swing, your racket is coming closer to your body. This is going to shorten your moment of arm. This is used for accuracy and control. After you completely swing through, you're increasing your moment of arm as well as you follow through. This is going to increase your moment of arm and allow you to release all the power that you just had stored. Then we have sequencing of joints. So for the sequencing of joints, you're starting from your proximal to your distal joints. So starting proximal, we have our shoulder. This is going to generate the most force. This is where our stored energy is going to be. Then it's going to transfer to your elbow. Your elbow is going to be assisted by three muscles, which is going to be your bicep brachii, your brachialis, and your brachioradialis. These three muscles help you for your speed and control. After this, you're going to go to your wrist, and your wrist is going to be used to stabilize your swing, and it's going to be used to add more acceleration to your swing. And this is also going to decelerate your arm after you make contact. Then you have length and tension. You have two kind of lengths. You have concentric and eccentric. For the eccentric, you're going to be having your bicep brachii lengthen, and it's going to pull on your brachii tendons, and this is going to allow you to generate force and build up during a swing. The tension is going to be between your tricep and your biceps. Then for your concentric, your brachii is going to shorten. As you get closer, like the man in this picture, you're going to concentric and shorten your muscles, specifically in your forearm for the flexor carpi radialis muscles. And this is going to help you use force during your swing and cause tension in your wrist so you can grip the racket. In conclusion, we have our 4 phases, which is going to be your preparation, your shifting, your contact, and your completion. Then you have your 2 most common injuries, which are going to be your lateral epicondylitis and your jumper's knee. To prevent your epicondylitis, you're going to have kinesio tape and a wrist brace to prevent these injuries. And for your knee jumper, you're going to do eccentric exercises. You're going to have an NSAID surgery. You have a platelet-rich plasma injection. And lastly, you're going to have cryotherapy. And that's all. Thank you.